In the sacred land of Kurukshetra, where Dharma and Adharma prepare to clash, the great war of Mahabharata is about to begin. This is not just a battle of kingdoms, but a battle of principles, of righteousness, ego, duty, and choice. Welcome to the timeless wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. We begin with Chapter 1, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the yoga of Arjuna's despair. In the first 12 verses, the scene is set. The players take the stage, and the spiritual war begins. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1 Verse 1, Dhritarashtra uvacha dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsava mamaka pandavashaiva kimakurvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, assembled in the holy land of Kurukshetra and desiring to fight, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? This verse marks the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. King Dhritarashtra, who is blind and unable to witness the battlefield himself, asks his charioteer Sanjaya about the events taking place in Kurukshetra. The battlefield is referred to as a Dharma Kshetra, or the field of righteousness, symbolizing that this is not just a war of weapons, but also a battle of principles. The king subtly expresses his concern and curiosity about the behavior of both his sons, the Kauravas, and the Pandavas, who are his nephews. This opening verse sets the stage for the entire Gita. It hints at the moral and emotional conflict brewing even before the first arrow is released. Dhritarashtra's question is more than just about action, it is about intention, dharma, and destiny. And so the spiritual dialogue begins. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1 Verse 2, Sanjaya uvacha drishtva tu pandavanikam vyudam duryodhanastada, acharyamupasangamya rajavachanam abravit. Sanjaya said, at that time, seeing the Pandava army arranged in military formation, King Duryodhana approached his teacher Dronacharya and spoke the following words. Sanjaya now begins narrating the events of the battlefield to Dhritarashtra. Upon observing the well-organized army of the Pandavas, Duryodhana, the Kaurava prince, becomes alert. He quickly walks up to his teacher, Dronacharya, the royal guru, to speak with him. His action shows the seriousness of the situation and hints at a mix of concern and strategy forming in his mind. This verse introduces us to Duryodhana's state of mind. He is cautious, perhaps even anxious, after witnessing the strong formation of the Pandavas. Turning to his teacher for counsel highlights the respect for tradition, but also his desire for reassurance and strategic guidance. The atmosphere of war is intensifying. Bhagavad Gita Chapter 1 Verse 3, Pashyaitam Pandu Putranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tava Shishena Dimata. Behold, O teacher, this mighty army of the sons of Pandu, arrayed by the son of Drupada, your wise disciple. Here, Duryodhana is speaking to Dronacharya. He points out the impressive formation of the Pandava army, led by Drishtadyumna, the son of King Drupada. There's a hint of sarcasm or subtle provocation, as Drishtadyumna was once born from fire with the purpose of killing Dronacharya. Yet he was trained by Drona himself. Duryodhana emphasizes this irony, calling him a wise student, perhaps to stir emotion or question loyalty. This verse reveals Duryodhana's cunning nature. While admiring the enemy's strength, he simultaneously tries to unnerve his teacher by reminding him of the betrayal by his own former student. It reflects the psychological warfare already at play, before the real battle has even begun. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, Verse 4, Atra Shura Maheshvasa Bhimarjuna Samayudhi Yuyudhano Viratascha, Drupadascha Maharatha. Here in this army, there are many heroic bowmen equal in battle to Bhima and Arjuna. Great fighters like Yuyudhana, Virata, and the mighty charioteer Drupada. Continuing his address to Dronacharya, Duryodhana starts listing the notable warriors on the Pandava side. He emphasizes their skill in archery and valor in war, comparing them to Bhima and Arjuna, the two strongest Pandava brothers. Warriors like Yuyudhana, also known as Satyaki, Virata, and Drupada, are highlighted as Maharathas, great chariot warriors capable of fighting thousands of opponents. This verse adds to the growing tension in Duryodhana's speech. It shows that he is keenly aware of the formidable strength of the Pandava army. His recognition of these warriors' capabilities, whether out of fear or respect, reveals the psychological preparation for the battle ahead. The war is not just of strength, but of strategy and nerves. Bhagavad Gita Chapter 1 Verse 5, Drishtaketushcha Kitana Kashirajascha Viryavan Purujit Kunti Bojascha Shaibyascha Narapungava. There are also mighty warriors like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, the valiant king of Kashi, Purujit, Kuntiboja, and Shaibya, the best among men. Duryodhana continues naming the powerful warriors aligned with the Pandavas. These names include respected kings and princes, known for their courage and fighting prowess. By calling Shaibya a Narapungava, meaning the best among men, Duryodhana emphasizes the heroic status of these allies. His growing list is a sign of the deep respect or subtle fear he holds toward the Pandava army's strength. This verse reflects the diversity and strength of the Pandava forces. Each warrior mentioned carries with him a history of valor and loyalty. Duryodhana's words further intensify the tension in the narrative, as the battlefield is populated not just with numbers, but with legends. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1 verse 6, Yudhamanyushcha Vikranta Utamaujascha Viryavan Saubhadro Draupadayascha Sarva Eva Maharatha. There are also the courageous Yudhamanyu, the valiant Utamaujas, the son of Subhadra, Abhimanyu, and the sons of Draupadi, all mighty chariot warriors. Duryodhana wraps up his list of Pandava warriors by naming a few more notable heroes. Yudhamanyu and Utamaujas were key protectors of Arjuna's chariot. Abhimanyu, the young but fearless son of Arjuna and Subhadra, is acknowledged for his remarkable bravery. Draupadi's 5 sons, one from each Pandava brother, are also included, all referred to as Maharathas, meaning they are capable of holding their own against many warriors in battle. This verse highlights the completeness and strength of the Pandava army, not only seasoned kings and warriors, but also the next generation of heroes. Duryodhana's detailed mention shows both respect and the gravity of the challenge he faces. The war is not only vast in scale, but also rich in valor on both sides. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1 verse 7, Asmakam tu vishishta yatani bodha dvijotama nayaka, mama sanyasya sanjanartham tanbravimite. But for your information, O best of the Brahmins, let me tell you about the most distinguished leaders of my army. After listing the mighty warriors on the Pandava side, Duryodhana now shifts focus to his own army. He addresses Dronacharya respectfully as Dvijotama, meaning best among the twice-born, or the learned Brahmins. Duryodhana now prepares to list the key generals and warriors from the Kaurava side, as if to reassure himself and his teacher of their own strength. This verse marks a turning point in Duryodhana's speech, from acknowledging the strength of the Pandavas to affirming the power within his own ranks. It's both a strategic and psychological move to instill confidence, signaling that while the opposition is formidable, the Kaurava army is no less mighty. Bhagavad Gita chapter 1 verse 8, Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitinjaya Ashvathama Vikarnascha Samadatis Tathaivacha. Yourself, Bhishma, Karna Kripa the conqueror in battle, Ashvathama, Vikarna, and also the son of Somadatta. These are the distinguished warriors on our side. Duryodhana begins listing the great warriors from his own army. He starts with Dronacharya himself, followed by legendary fighters like Bhishma, the grandsire, Karna, the mighty archer and loyal friend, Kripa, the wise and seasoned warrior, Ashwathama, the fierce son of Drona, Vikarna, Duryodhana's own brother, and Saumadati, also known as Bhurishrava. All of these men are experienced and battle-hardened heroes. In this verse, Duryodhana seeks to balance the psychological scales. After acknowledging the strength of the Pandavas, he now takes pride in his own warriors. These aren't just names, they represent loyalty, power, and heritage. By naming these men, Duryodhana reinforces his own morale and that of his teacher, placing trust in the legacy and strength of his commanders. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1 verse 9, Anye cha bahava shura madarte tyakta jivita nana shastra praharana sarve yuddha visharada. There are also many other heroic warriors, all prepared to give up their lives for my sake. Armed with various weapons, they are all well skilled in the art of warfare. Duryodhana continues to build up the strength of his army in front of Dronacharya. Beyond the elite warriors already named, he mentions many more brave souls who are willing to sacrifice their lives for his cause. These fighters are not only loyal, but are also well versed in the use of multiple weapons, making them fierce and competent opponents on the battlefield. This verse reflects Duryodhana's growing confidence, or perhaps his desperate need to feel secure in the face of the formidable Pandava force. He underscores not just numbers, but devotion and expertise. This declaration sets the tone. This is not just a battle for land or power. It is a battle where warriors are ready to die for their beliefs and loyalties. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1 verse 10, Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam bhishmabhirakshitam paryaptam tvidamitasam balam bhimabhirakshitam. Our strength guarded by Bhishma is unlimited, but the strength of the Pandavas, protected by Bhima, is limited. Here, Duryodhana is making a bold comparison between the two armies. He declares that his own forces, under the command and protection of Bhishma, the oldest and wisest warrior on the field, are boundless. In contrast, he tries to diminish the Pandava side by saying their strength, led by Bhima, is limited. Whether this is true confidence or wishful thinking is open to interpretation. This verse offers a glimpse into Duryodhana's mindset. He seeks to reassure himself and boost morale. His words may reflect pride, but they also hint at the psychological war already underway. Despite having named many strong warriors on both sides, he now attempts to tip the balance in his favor by elevating Bhishma above Bhima. The drama of the battlefield continues to rise. Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, verse 11, Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yata bhagamavastita, Bhishmameva bhirakshantu bhavanta sarva eva hi. Therefore, all of you positioned in your respective strategic points, should give full support to grandfather Bhishma alone. Duryodhana, aware of the crucial role Bhishma plays in the war, instructs all his commanders to give their utmost support and protection to him. He wants every soldier and warrior in every division of the army to prioritize defending Bhishma. This shows how deeply Duryodhana values Bhishma, not just for his martial skill, but for the morale and symbolism he brings to the Kaurava side. This verse underscores Bhishma's central importance to the Kaurava strategy. Duryodhana is practically placing all his hopes on the grandsire's leadership. His command also reflects an early sign of anxiety. He knows the Pandava forces are strong and wants to ensure his strongest asset is shielded. It sets the stage for the gravity and respect Bhishma commands in this great war. Bhagavad Gita chapter 1 verse 12, Tasya sanjanayan harsham kuru vridha pitamaha simhanadam vinadyochai shankham dadma pratapavan. Then, to uplift Duryodhana's spirits, the glorious grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, Bhishma, roared like a lion and blew his conch shell powerfully. This verse marks a dramatic moment on the battlefield. Seeing Duryodhana's inner unease, Bhishma, the mighty elder of the Kuru clan, takes charge. He blows his conch with the roar of a lion, a gesture meant to boost the confidence of his army and signal the beginning of the epic war. His act is not just about war protocol, but a message. I, Bhishma, am ready. Bhishma's powerful conch blast serves as both a battle cry and a reassurance. It awakens courage, pride, and intensity in the Kaurava ranks. This single moment captures the shift from words to action. No more diplomacy, no more strategy talks. Only the sound of war thundering through the air. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1 verse 13, Ata shankhascha bhiryascha panavanaka gomukha sahasevabhyahanyanta sa shabdastu mulo bhavat. Then suddenly, conches, kettle drums, tabors, drums and horns blared forth all at once, producing a tumultuous sound that shook the earth and sky. In this verse, the battlefield of Kurukshetra erupts with a thunderous symphony of war instruments. The simultaneous blowing of conches and beating of drums signals the start of the great battle. This intense sound symbolizes the seriousness, urgency, and magnitude of the war about to begin. This verse marks a dramatic shift from dialogue to action, setting an emotional and auditory atmosphere. It emphasizes the inevitable conflict ahead and draws the listener into the gripping energy of the battlefield. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1, verse 14. Tata shveter hayar yukte mahati syandane sthito madhava pandavaschaiva divyo shankha pradadmatu. Then, Lord Krishna, Madhava, and Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in a magnificent chariot drawn by white horses, blew their divine conches. This verse introduces the divine duo, Sri Krishna and Arjuna, as they take center stage. Riding on a grand chariot driven by white horses, their blowing of celestial conches symbolizes not only the readiness for battle, but also the righteousness of their cause. It marks the moral and spiritual strength on the side of the Pandavas. This powerful image sets the tone for the coming spiritual discourse. The conch sound isn't just a call to war. It signals the dawn of divine wisdom and the unfolding of the Bhagavad Gita's eternal message. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1 verse 15. Panchajanyam Hrishikesho Devadatam Dhananjaya Pondram Dadmao Mahashankham Bhimakarma Vrikodara. Hrishikesha, Krishna, blew his conch named Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his own, called Devadatta. And Bhima, the one with mighty deeds and the son of the wind god, blew his enormous conch called Paundra. This verse continues the atmosphere of rising energy before the battle. Each warrior's conch has a name, signifying their heroic identity and divine attributes. Krishna, as the Supreme Lord, Arjuna, the peerless archer, and Bhima, the powerful warrior, announce their readiness. The sound of their conches resonates with power, virtue, and divine authority. The naming of each conch adds symbolic depth. This moment is not just preparation for war, it's the invocation of righteousness and courage. With these divine sounds, the spiritual war for Dharma begins. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1 verse 16. Anantavijayam Raja Kunti Putro Yudhishthira, Nakula Sahadevascha Sughosha Manipushpakau. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch named Anantavijaya. Nakula and Sahadeva, the twin sons of Madri, blew their conches Sughosha and Manipushpaka respectively. This verse brings focus to the remaining Pandava brothers. Yudhishthira, known for his unwavering commitment to truth and righteousness, sounds Anantavijaya, symbolizing eternal victory. Nakula and Sahadeva, known for their loyalty and wisdom, contribute their strength with the sounds of Sughosha and Manipushpaka. Together, the Pandava brothers create a harmonious chorus of strength, virtue, and unity. Their conches represent not just battle preparation but the readiness to stand for Dharma with honor and integrity. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 17. Kashyascha Parameshvasa Shikhandicha Maharatha Drishtadyumno Viratascha Satyakishcha Parajita, the king of Kashi. An exceptional archer, the mighty warrior Shikhandi, Drishtadyumna Virata and the invincible Satyaki, all blew their conches. This verse introduces more valiant warriors from the Pandava army. Each of them is known for their unique strength and valor. The king of Kashi is famous for his archery, Shikhandi for his fierce resolve, Drishtadyumna as the commander-in-chief, Virata for his bravery, and Satyaki for his undefeated record in battle. Their presence emphasizes the strength and diversity of the Pandava side. Each warrior contributes not only to the army's might, but to the cause of righteousness. Their conch blasts form a thunderous declaration of unity and readiness. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 18. Drupado Draupadiyascha Sarvasha Prithivipate Sobhadrashcha Mahabahu Shankhandadmu Prithak Prithak, O king. Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and the mighty armed Abhimanyu, the son of Subhadra, all blew their conches separately from different directions. This verse completes the description of the Pandava army's conch blowing. Drupada, the father of Draupadi, along with her 5 heroic sons and Abhimanyu, the brave young warrior son of Arjuna, each sound their own conches. The coordinated blasts from every corner symbolize complete preparedness and the righteous unity of the Pandava forces. With each noble warrior announcing his presence, the atmosphere is charged with energy and anticipation. It's more than the sound of war. It's a harmonious call of Dharma echoing across the battlefield. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 19. Sagosho Dhartarashtranam hridayani vyadarayatnabhascha prithivim chaiva tumulobhyanunadayan. That tremendous sound echoed through the sky and earth and shattered the hearts of Dhritarashtra's sons. The united blast of the Pandavas' conches wasn't just noise, it was a declaration of righteous strength. The sound was so intense and overwhelming that it struck fear into the hearts of the Kauravas. The sky and earth themselves seemed to resound with the mighty vibration, signaling the gravity of the war about to unfold. This verse shows the emotional impact of unity, righteousness, and divine strength. The Pandavas' confidence and Dharma-driven courage send tremors through their adversaries, even before a single weapon is raised. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 20. Atha vyavasthitan drishtva dhartarashtran kapidhvaja pravritte shastra sampate dhanurudyamya pandava hrishikesham tada vakyam idamaha mahipate. At that time, Arjuna, whose chariot bore the emblem of Hanuman, seeing the sons of Dhritarashtra arrayed and about to begin the battle, lifted his bow and spoke these words to Lord Krishna, O king. As the warriors stand in formation and the conch shells still echo across Kurukshetra, Arjuna, bearing the symbol of Hanuman on his chariot, prepares to engage. But before the first arrow is loosed, he turns to Krishna, his charioteer and divine guide. A crucial dialogue is about to begin, marking the transition from external war to the inner battle of the soul. This verse sets the stage for the sacred teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. It's not just a battlefield, it's a spiritual journey, and Arjuna's questioning begins the timeless conversation with the divine. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 21. Arjuna uvacha senaya ubhayor madhya ratam stapaya Achyuta. Arjuna said, O Achyuta, Krishna, please place my chariot between the two armies. At this intense moment, Arjuna makes a heartfelt request to Krishna to position the chariot in the center of the battlefield. He wants to see with his own eyes those he must fight. This is not just a tactical move, it's the beginning of deep reflection. Arjuna is about to confront not only his enemies, but his own values, duties, and emotions. This verse marks a turning point. It shows Arjuna's desire to pause and observe, to understand the full weight of the battle, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. It's the first step toward the profound wisdom that the Gita unveils. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 22. Yavadetan niriksheham, yodukaman avasthitan karmaya saha yodhavyam asmin rana samudyame. Let me see those who have come to fight, desiring to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Let me observe with whom I must engage in this great battle. Arjuna wishes to carefully observe those who stand ready to fight for adharma, unrighteousness, those who have joined Duryodhana's cause. He's not just preparing for combat, he is seeking clarity. Before raising his bow, he wants to understand the true nature of his opponents and the moral implications of fighting them. This verse shows Arjuna's inner conflict beginning to stir. He's no longer just a warrior, he's becoming a seeker. This desire to see is symbolic of his quest for truth, justice, and understanding in the chaos of war. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 23. Yotsyaman avekshahamya etetra samagata dhartarashtrasya durbudar yude priyachikashava. Let me see those who have gathered here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Arjuna continues his request to Krishna, asking to observe the warriors assembled to support Duryodhana. He refers to Duryodhana as Durbudi, ill-intentioned or evil-minded, showing his disapproval of the unjust cause. Arjuna seeks to understand who would willingly support such a path of adharma, unrighteousness. This verse deepens Arjuna's emotional and moral conflict. It isn't just about enemies anymore. It's about the people he may know, respect, or even love, who now stand on the wrong side of Dharma. The inner turmoil that will soon paralyze him begins here. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1 verse 24. Sanjaya uvacha evam ukto hrishikesho gudakeshena bharata senayor ubhayor madhye stapayatva rathotamam. Sanjaya said, O descendant of Bharata, thus addressed by Gudakesha, Arjuna, Hrishikesha, Lord Krishna, placed the magnificent chariot in the midst of the two armies. In response to Arjuna's heartfelt request, Lord Krishna, referred to here as Hrishikesha, the Lord of the senses, drives the divine chariot between the two great armies. This moment marks the literal and symbolic positioning of Arjuna between two worlds, one of duty and war, and one of compassion and inner moral conflict. This verse transitions the narrative from preparation to confrontation. Krishna, the divine charioteer, honors Arjuna's request not just physically but also spiritually, guiding him into the heart of the battlefield where the ultimate spiritual awakening is about to begin. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 25. Bhishma Drona Pramukhata Sarvesham Cha Mahikshitam Uvacha Partha Pashyaitan Samavitan Kurun iti. In the presence of Bhishma, Drona, and all the other kings, Lord Krishna said, Behold, O Partha, Arjuna, all the Kurus assembled here. Lord Krishna, standing in the midst of the battlefield with Arjuna, points toward the great warriors gathered, Bhishma, Drona, and others. He gently asks Arjuna to observe the armies assembled before him. This is not just a call to see with the eyes, but to perceive the deeper implications of fighting those whom he reveres and loves. This verse begins to stir Arjuna's emotional and moral conflict. Krishna sets the stage for inner realization, showing Arjuna the stark reality of war, not just as a physical battle, but a battle of duty, dharma, and soul. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 26. Tatra pashyat sthitan partha pitrinatha pitamahan acharyan matulan bhratrin putran pautran sakhim stathashva shuran suhridash chaiva senayor ubhayor api. There, Arjuna saw, standing on both sides, his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, fathers-in-law, and well-wishers. This verse marks a turning point. As Arjuna looks upon the battlefield, he doesn't just see warriors, he sees his family, friends, and revered elders. The emotional gravity of war starts to hit him. The people in front of him are not faceless enemies, but deeply connected individuals from his own life. The battlefield becomes a place of emotional turmoil. Arjuna's vision shifts from strategy to sentiment. This moment lays the foundation for the profound spiritual crisis and questions that will follow in the next verses, ultimately leading to the teachings of the Gita. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 27. Tan samikshya kaunteya sarvan bandhun avastitan kripaya paraya vishto vishidan idam abravit. Seeing all his relatives arrayed on both sides, Arjuna, son of Kunti, was overwhelmed with deep compassion and spoke sorrowfully. As Arjuna looks at the battlefield filled with his own kin, he is overtaken by intense grief and compassion. The idea of fighting his loved ones becomes unbearable. His warrior spirit begins to waver, and emotions start to dominate his mind. This verse captures Arjuna's emotional collapse. The heroic archer begins to be consumed by inner turmoil. His heart, rather than his bow, begins to speak. The Mahabharata war is no longer just about territory. It is now about dharma, love, duty, and inner conflict, all themes that unfold deeply in the Gita. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 28. Arjuna uvacha drishtvimam svajanam Krishna yuyutsum samupastitam siddhanti mamagatrani mukham cha parishusyati. Arjuna said, O Krishna, seeing my own kinsmen eager to fight, my limbs give way, and my mouth becomes dry. In this verse, Arjuna begins to articulate his inner breakdown. The mere sight of his family members prepared for battle is enough to shatter his composure. His body reacts physically, trembling limbs and a dry mouth, symptoms of overwhelming emotional distress. This is the beginning of Arjuna's confession, not of fear, but of moral and emotional conflict. This verse sets the tone for the larger theme of the Gita. The battle within is as intense as the battle outside. Arjuna's vulnerability paves the way for Lord Krishna's divine guidance. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 29. Vepatushcha sharire me roma harshashcha jayate gandivam sramsate hastat tvak chaiva paridahyate. My body trembles, and my hair stands on end. The Gandiva bow slips from my hand, and my skin burns all over. Arjuna continues describing the intense physical manifestations of his inner turmoil. His body shakes uncontrollably, his hair stands up in fear, and his mighty bow, Gandiva, slips from his grasp. He feels a burning sensation across his skin, symbolizing the anguish and dread of fighting his loved ones. This verse captures Arjuna's descent into a deeply emotional and psychological crisis. His warrior identity is dissolving in the face of moral pain. The once steady hands of a great archer now tremble. This vulnerability is what makes the Bhagavad Gita not just a dialogue on war, but a spiritual reflection on duty, self, and the soul. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, Verse 30 Nacha Shaknomi Avastatum Brahmativa Chame Mananimitani Chapashyami Viparitani Keshava. I am unable to stand steady, and my mind seems to be reeling. O Keshava, I see only adverse omens all around. Arjuna's emotional breakdown continues to deepen. He feels physically weak, mentally disoriented, and spiritually conflicted. He confesses to Krishna that his mind is spinning with confusion, and that he sees only negative signs, omens that seem to warn him against engaging in this battle. Conclusion. This verse reveals the complete unraveling of Arjuna's inner strength. What began as a warrior's determination has now turned into fear, anxiety, and doubt. He stands at the edge of surrender, not to the enemy, but to the overwhelming weight of conscience. This moment sets the perfect stage for Lord Krishna's timeless guidance. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, Verse 31, Nacha, Shreyonupashyami hatva svajana mahave. I do not see any good in killing my own kinsman in this battle. Arjuna, overwhelmed by grief and compassion, expresses his deep disillusionment. For him, no victory, kingdom or reward can justify the destruction of his own family and loved ones. His words reflect the moral and emotional dilemma faced by every human in moments of deep conflict. This verse stands as a powerful statement of empathy and the internal conflict between duty and emotion. Arjuna begins to question the very foundation of warfare and righteousness. His cry is not of cowardice, but of a heart caught between dharma and love. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1 Verse 32, Nakankshe Vijayam Krishna Nacha Rajyam Sukhanicha Kimno Rajena Govinda Kim Bhogar Jivitenava O Krishna. I do not desire victory nor kingdom nor pleasures. O Govinda, of what use is a kingdom, pleasures, or even life itself? Arjuna continues to reveal his emotional turmoil. He questions the very purpose of the battle and the rewards it promises. To him, victory and kingdom are meaningless if gained through the suffering and death of loved ones. Life without them, he says, holds no joy or purpose. This verse touches on the essence of detachment and love. Arjuna isn't rejecting power or pleasure out of ignorance, but from deep emotional clarity. This moment of raw honesty brings the listener closer to Arjuna's heart and prepares the stage for Krishna's divine wisdom to shine. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, Verse 33. Yeshamarte kankshitam, no rajyam bhoga sukhanichata imevastita yude pranam styaktva dhananicha. Those, for whose sake we desire kingdom, enjoyments, and pleasures. They are all standing here in battle, ready to give up their lives and riches. Arjuna reflects on the bitter irony of war. The very people he wishes to please or protect with victory, elders, teachers, and family, are ready to die on the battlefield. If they perish, then the kingdom and luxuries won't hold any meaning for him. This verse deepens Arjuna's sense of despair and moral conflict. It highlights the paradox of war, gaining everything by losing what truly matters. His attachment to his loved ones now challenges his warrior duty, prompting the spiritual dialogue that follows. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, Verse 34, Acharya Pitara Putras Tathaiva Chapita Mahamatula Shvashura, Pautrashyala Sambandhinas Tatha teachers, fathers, sons, and also grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives. Arjuna lists the many relatives and respected elders gathered on the battlefield, emphasizing the strong personal bonds that connect him to both sides. These are not strangers or enemies, they are his own flesh and blood. This verse continues to build Arjuna's emotional and moral struggle. The battlefield is not just a place of strategy and power. For Arjuna, it's a place of deep personal loss. He's overwhelmed by the prospect of causing harm to those he reveres and loves. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, Verse 35. Etanna hantum ichchami gnatopi Madhusudana api trilokya rajasya heto kimnu mahikrite o Madhusudana. Krishna, I do not wish to kill them, even if they attack me. Not even for the sovereignty of the three worlds, let alone for this earth. Arjuna expresses a firm refusal to engage in battle, even if offered rule over the entire universe. His inner values and emotional turmoil overpower his sense of duty. For him, the price of victory, gained by killing his own kin, is far too high. This verse highlights Arjuna's deepening detachment from worldly gains and his rising moral conflict. He appeals to Krishna with honesty, revealing his inner resistance to violence, even under extreme provocation or promise of unimaginable reward. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, Verse 36. Nihatya Dhritarashtra nakapriti syaj janardana papame vashrayed. Asman hatvaitan atataina o janardana. What joy would we derive by killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? Only sin will befall us if we slay these aggressors. Arjuna questions the value of a victory won through bloodshed. Even though the Kauravas are aggressors, atataina, he believes that killing them would result in sin, not joy. This shows his deep concern with righteousness and moral consequence. Arjuna's conflict grows more intense. He weighs dharma, duty, against karma, consequences. His conscience tells him that even justified violence may leave lasting guilt and sorrow. Thus, the inner war before the outer battle takes center stage. Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 1 verse 37. Tasman nadhavayam hantum dhartarashtran sabandhavan svajanam hi katham hatva sukhina syama madhava. Therefore, O Madhava, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra along with their companions. How can we be happy by killing our own people? Arjuna continues to express his inner turmoil. He appeals to Krishna with a moral argument. Even if the Kauravas are in the wrong, killing one's own relatives and friends cannot bring happiness. His heart is torn between duty as a warrior and love for his family. This verse further reveals Arjuna's emotional and ethical conflict. It shows the gravity of war, not just as a clash of weapons, but as a crisis of the soul. The Bhagavad Gita begins to unfold as a dialogue on life, duty, and the deeper meaning of righteousness. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1 verse 38. Yadi apiyetena pashyanti lobhopahata chetasakulaksaya kritam dosham mitradrohecha patakam. Even though their intelligence is clouded by greed, and they see no wrong in destroying the family or betraying friends. Arjuna continues to reflect on the actions of the Kauravas, noting that their minds are deluded by greed. He recognizes that they are unable to see the sin in killing their own kin and betraying familial bonds. This verse highlights Arjuna's growing inner clarity. While he recognizes the Kauravas' faults, he refuses to mirror their blindness. His sense of dharma compels him to act differently, not out of emotion, but out of deep ethical awareness. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 39. Katham na jneyam asmabhi papad asman nivartitum kulakshaya kritam dosham prapashyadbhir janardana o janardana, Krishna. Why shouldn't we, who clearly see the evil in the destruction of the family, learn to turn away from this sin? Arjuna appeals to Krishna, expressing confusion as to why those who understand the grave consequences of destroying their own lineage should still engage in such acts. He emphasizes the importance of wisdom and reflection before taking violent steps. This verse deepens Arjuna's moral dilemma. Even while prepared for war, he questions the righteousness of actions that lead to family destruction. His conscience is steering him toward non-violence, urging Krishna to consider a nobler alternative. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 40, Kulakshaye pranashyanti kula dharma sanatana dharme nashte kulam kritsnam adharmo bhibhavati utya. With the destruction of the family, the eternal family traditions perish. When dharma is lost, the entire family is overtaken by adharma, unrighteousness. Arjuna emphasizes the devastating ripple effect of war. The fall of a family doesn't just take lives, it uproots values, traditions, and the foundation of dharma. Without this moral compass, chaos and adharma take over. This verse reflects Arjuna's deep philosophical insight. He sees beyond the battlefield into the future of a broken society where spiritual and cultural degradation follows family destruction. His concern is not just personal, but societal. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1 verse 41, Adharma bibhavat Krishna pradushyanti kulastriya strishu dushtasu varshneya jayate varna sankara. When irreligion dominates, O Krishna, the women of the family become corrupted. And with the corruption of women, O descendant of Vrishni, there arises unwanted progeny, Varna Sankara. In this verse, Arjuna warns of the societal consequences when dharma is lost. He believes that with moral degradation, family women become vulnerable, leading to social disorder and the breakdown of the traditional Varna, social, structure. This concern reflects his fear of long-term damage to societal harmony. Arjuna is not only troubled by the act of war itself, but is deeply worried about its generational impact. His vision extends to the collapse of values and structures that preserve balance in society. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1 verse 42, Sankaro narakayaiva kulagnanam kulasya chapatanti pitarohi, esham lupta pindodaka kriya. An increase in unwanted progeny leads the family and its destroyers to hell. Deprived of the offerings of rice and water, the ancestors of such families fall down. In this verse, Arjuna continues his argument against war. He expresses concern that the destruction of families causes the loss of sacred family traditions, including the rituals for ancestors. Without these offerings, the souls of ancestors suffer, and a cycle of misfortune begins, impacting both the living and the dead. This powerful verse reflects Arjuna's emotional and spiritual turmoil. He fears not just the bloodshed of war, but the spiritual consequences that ripple through generations. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 43, Dosher etai kulagnanam varna sankara karakai, utsadyante jati dharma, kula dharmash chashashvata. Due to the sins of those who destroy the family and cause the mixing of social classes, the eternal traditions of caste and family duties are eradicated. In this verse, Arjuna continues lamenting the moral decay that follows war. He highlights that by killing families and disrupting the social order, the long-established traditions, both spiritual and societal, are destroyed. This leads to the collapse of righteousness and cultural values. Arjuna's dilemma is not only emotional but deeply philosophical. He is overwhelmed by the far-reaching consequences of war beyond the battlefield into the very core of Dharma and tradition. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 44, Utsana kula dharmanam, manushyanam janadana, narakeniyatam vaso, bhavatityanu O janadana, Krishna, we have heard that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell in hell for an indefinite period. Here, Arjuna shares what he has learned from the scriptures and elders. He says that when the sacred family duties are ruined, people fall into spiritual ruin. Such individuals are condemned to suffer in hell endlessly, illustrating the grave consequences of disrupting Dharma. This verse emphasizes the long-term spiritual downfall that can come from short-term actions like war. Arjuna's conscience is deeply troubled, and he's trying to avoid actions that would lead to eternal suffering. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 45, Ahobata mahat papam kartum vyavasita vayam yadraja sukhalobena hantum svajanamudyata alas. What a great sin we are prepared to commit, driven by the greed for royal pleasure and happiness, as we set out to kill our own kinsmen. Arjuna, overwhelmed with grief and moral conflict, acknowledges the depth of wrongdoing in engaging in battle against his own relatives. He recognizes that their desire for power and luxury has blinded them to the immense sin of killing their family. This verse reflects Arjuna's intense emotional and ethical turmoil. The greed for a kingdom, he admits, is not worth the price of such a heavy karmic burden. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 46, Yadimam apratikaram ashastram shastrapanaya Dhritarashtra rane hanyus tanmekshimataram bhavet. In this verse, Arjuna is expressing his deep moral conflict. He states that if the sons of Dhritarashtra, who are armed and ready for battle, kill him, he would consider it better than fighting them. Arjuna's reluctance to engage in battle comes from the deep sorrow of having to fight against his own kin, teachers, and friends. He feels that it would be more righteous for him to be killed in the war than to kill his relatives, as it would bring immense sin and sorrow. Arjuna's words reflect his intense emotional and ethical turmoil. He recognizes that the pursuit of power and the kingdom cannot justify the immense karmic burden of killing his own family. This moment signifies his moral struggle before the battle, and his hesitation to engage in an act that could bring irreversible consequences, even though he knows it is his duty as a warrior. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, verse 47, Sanjaya uvaka evam uktva Arjuna sankhye rathopasta upavishat visrijya sasharam chapam shoka sambigna manasa. In this verse, Sanjaya narrates the state of Arjuna after he has expressed his moral and emotional conflict. Arjuna, overwhelmed with grief and sorrow, sits down on his chariot. He puts down his bow and arrows, the sharam chapam, and is mentally disturbed by the situation, struggling with the thought of having to fight his own kin. His mind is filled with despondency and sorrow, and he is unable to proceed with the battle. This verse marks the turning point in Arjuna's internal struggle. He is unable to continue with the battle due to his deep emotional turmoil. Arjuna's reluctance and sorrow at this moment highlight his compassion and humanity, emphasizing the intense moral dilemma he faces before the war. The verse sets the stage for Lord Krishna's counsel, which will come in subsequent verses.